your muscles are aching. And also you've got a headache and you're feeling depressed because of X, Y, and Z. And you go into a sauna and you're there for 20 minutes and you come out and you feel like $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Why? So we think it must be something psychological, and maybe it is. However, you sit in the sauna, it's hot, you're receiving infrared energy. That infrared energy is penetrating your body. So what is it doing to the water? It builds easy water. You need that easy water in your cells to function properly. So you're feeling depressed, your brain is not designed for you to feel depressed. Something is going on. And the energy comes in, it builds the easy water in the neurons that fill your brain, and you're back up to normal and you're feeling okay.
Welcome to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation for Wise Traditions in Food, Farming, and the Healing Arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
I'm your host, Hilda Labrada-Gore. This is episode 67, and my guest is Gerald Pollack. Jerry is a brilliant man, a professor of bioengineering who got his Bachelor of Science from NYU and his PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. He is a well-known lecturer and author. Today we speak primarily about his amazing discovery about the fourth phase of water. Yes, there's more to water than what we learned in science class in fourth grade. And it's critical information for our health because this fourth phase of water, this easy water, is coursing through our bodies, and we need to continually look for ways to build it up by tapping into the negative energy all around us. Jerry explains it much better than I do, so stay tuned for this interesting conversation. Before we dig into the conversation, we want to thank our sponsors, the Weston A. Price Foundation. They are currently in the midst of a discounted membership drive. It's a great time to become a member. Visit westonaprice.org for more information. And listeners like you, we appreciate your invaluable support of the show. Every time you share an episode or retweet a link, you help others discover this valuable health information. Thank you. Welcome to the podcast, Jerry.
Oh, well, thanks, Hilda. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Tell us, how did you get into water? Do you have a story you can tell us about that?
Well, I immersed myself, so to speak, into water. It happened about maybe 20 years ago. I'd been studying the contraction of muscles, and any of you who know something about muscle, you've looked in the textbook or popular books, and you can see all the proteins that bend and twist and turn and interact to produce the contraction at the molecular level. It occurred to me that something is missing from this picture. What's missing? What's missing is water. Muscle cells, like all cells of our body, are mostly water. 2/3 of our muscles are water. That's 2/3 by volume. But if you think about it, if you think about 2/3 by volume, to fill that 2/3, the water molecule is really small. So you need a lot of water molecules put in there to fill that 2/3. And if you do the arithmetic and you do a molecular count, all the molecules lined up, 1, 2, 3, more than 99 out of every 100 molecules are water molecules. So something struck me as weird. We're trying to understand how muscle contracts, and we we omit more than 99% of the molecules that are involved.
Oh, I see. We're paying attention to the muscle fiber, not the water, right?
We're paying attention to the muscle proteins that are in the fiber, right, and not the water. But the water is the most populous member of the family that's there. And so, it's certainly possible, as the textbooks assert, that the water is nothing more than the background carrier of the more significant molecules of life. However, there's a lot of evidence that simply is not true. And so we started to think about water and the involvement of water in the contraction of muscles at the molecular scale, and we found a gold mine. Water is absolutely essential for everything that muscles do. And so, starting from muscles, it became clear that if water plays a significant role in what happens in the muscle, it probably also plays a significant role in what happens in your nerves and in your kidney and in your liver and your whole being. And that's how we got started.
I see. And so I understand that this is also the theme of your latest book.
Well, yeah, the book is called The Fourth Phase of Water. And we actually discover that the role of water, not only in muscles, but in everything in your body, evolves from a kind of different type of water. What I mean by this is that, we know that we're full of water, 2/3 water, but that water is not the same as the water in the glass. It's a different kind of water. It's a water that builds next to solids at interfaces. And it's not just a little bit of it, it's not just the layer of water that intersects or that meets the solid. It extends out by up to, thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of molecular layers. So there's a lot of it. And so we got interested in understanding this kind of water. We did many experiments, and the culmination of those experiments is basically a discovery that water doesn't have 3 phases, as we've all learned. That it's
liquid, solid, and gas.
Liquid, solid, gas. It's got a 4th one, right? And the 4th one is what we call easy water or 4th phase water. Easy, perhaps as a misnomer, we call it exclusion zone or easy water, because when we first found it, the obvious property is that it tended to exclude everything, little particles, microspheres, molecules. You might call it pure, but pure is really a misnomer. It's a different kind of water, and actually has a different chemical formula. It's not H2O, it's H3O2. Yeah.
So many questions are coursing through my mind. One is this easy water the water that's in our bodies?
Totally. It's the water that fills your cells. And the reason that you can imagine why, this is the kind of water that occurs at interfaces with solids, with certain types of solid, but most solids. And your cell is filled with so many solids. It's filled with large or macromolecules. It's filled with ions and such. And next to all of these entities grows this kind of special water. And your cells are so packed with these molecules that practically every water molecule is so close to one of those surfaces that it qualifies as interfacial water. And that's the water that this 4th phase or easy water that we discovered.
Okay, well, you keep saying we. Who are you talking about?
Well, I'm at the University of Washington, and I have a laboratory, a very active laboratory consisting of visiting scientists and postdoctoral fellows and graduate students and numerous undergraduate students who are actually the most creative and brightest of all. and we work together as a group, and we've done many, many experiments. And I just got to tell you a couple of things about this water, because people are beginning to appreciate the presence of this kind of water. It's got a couple of astounding properties. The first of it is that while H2O is neutral, this stuff is not neutral. It's actually negatively charged. And so you can imagine a surface of some material, and the water is sitting next to it. And the molecules of water sitting next to the surface, many, many layers of molecules, undergo a transformation to this 4th phase of water, which has negative charge. What's going on is that ordinary water molecules split to form negative and positive components, and the negative components all line up to produce this zone we call EZ. It's got negative charge, and beyond that, where you have ordinary H2O, that's filled with the complementary positive charges, the protons. So you've got the easy water that's negative, and the ordinary water that's positive. It's a battery. We can get energy from this battery, and you get energy from that battery as well.
I was going to ask you, how does this apply to me? What difference does this 4th phase of water make to us?
Well, the first is a recognition that you're full of 4th phase water. So to answer your question, what you need to do is understand what builds this kind of water, because the building order, this is an ordered phase of water, building order and separating charge all require energy. So if you take your cell phone, your battery's running low, you got to plug it in to rejuvenate, to get right. And this is the same. In order to get a battery, this is a battery we're talking about. In order to get the battery, you have to feed it energy. Now, there's no way you can plug this into the wall to get 120 volts or whatever. So it doesn't work. And we scratched our collective heads for a long time before we could figure out what the source of energy is. And the source of energy, which helps answer your question, is light. we were flabbergasted to find that it's light that builds this phase. So if you think about, well, okay, when we speak of light, most people think of visible light, and we think of that too, but light also, the term light, quote unquote, physicists use that to denote not only the visible portion of the spectrum, but also infrared, ultraviolet, and beyond those two. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that the most powerful wavelength to build this kind of water is not visible light, but infrared light. And so a question that you probably want to ask, but I don't allow you to, to get a word in edgewise because this is so exciting, is, well, where does infrared light come from?
Exactly.
And you were going to ask that.
I really was.
Yeah, you were going to ask, and I'm sorry for anticipating your question.
That's fine.
Yeah, but so probably you think of the electric range or the toaster, glowing bright red, and this bright red glow then is eliciting infrared light, but infrared is actually all over the place. So in the room where the two of us are now sitting, if we turned off all the lights and shut any window shades and such, so it's completely dark, black, I can't see you, you can't see me. If I whip out my infrared camera, I see a beautiful image of you and a beautiful image of the walls and the carpet and the microphone, that's et cetera, et cetera. And the reason is that my infrared camera is picking up infrared radiation that's coming from all of that.
So it's like the night vision goggles that the military uses.
It's precisely the same.
Okay.
It's the night vision goggles. And
so this infrared light is around us?
It's all around us. You can't get rid of it. It's almost it's free energy. So some of us who studied chemistry, who tried to understand it, we tried to learn about so-called free energy. It was challenging. However, this is really free. It's literally free. It's there all the time for the taking. You almost can't get rid of it.
And so this energy is facilitating what I want to happen with the fourth phase of water in my body.
Exactly. It builds it. And so, for example, going back to muscles, if your muscles are aching, and also you've got a headache and you're feeling depressed because of X, Y, and Z, and you go into a sauna and you're there for 20 minutes, and you come out and you feel like $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Why? So we think it must be something psychological, and maybe it is. However, you sit in the sauna, it's hot, you're receiving infrared energy. That infrared energy is penetrating your body. So what is it doing to the water? It builds easy water. You need that easy water in your cells to function properly. So you're feeling depressed, your brain is not designed for you to feel depressed. Something is going on. And the energy comes in, it builds the easy water in the neurons that fill your brain, and you're back up to normal, and you're feeling okay.
A sauna is a good idea. And then walking on the beach, right?
Walking on the beach is exactly, I was going to mention that, you beat me to it. So you walk on the beach, why does that make you feel good or better? Well, again, it's sort of nice to do something out of the ordinary. You're sitting at your computer all day and you walk on the beach. However, there's a physical reason, and that is the earth. Many people don't know this, and I didn't know it until about 7 or 8 years ago, that the earth has net negative charge. It's not neutral. The earth is negatively charged. So when you contact to the earth with your bare feet, all of those negative charges seep into your body, and you need those negative charges in order to build easy water. Easy water is negatively charged. So walking on the beach will build the easy water, which makes you feel better.
I've heard of this. It's called earthing, right? Where you take your shoes off and put your feet on the ground. As children, we do it naturally, running and playing in a park. But as adults, there's concrete and we have our shoes and things that interfere between us and the earth. But the earth has something to offer us. I've heard them describe it also as antioxidants, right? Almost like what blueberries do. It has something that you're saying is a negative charge that our bodies need.
Yeah, and these are really all fall into the same category. Our bodies must have negative charge. In fact, it's not widely known, but if we were to measure the electrical potential of you relative to the earth, you're negatively charged. It's because all your cells are negatively charged. And that negative charge is critical for life. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's one of the maybe definitions of life. If you lose your negative charge, you're dead. You need it. And so you can get negative charge by earthing. Earthing is the same as grounding. In the U.S., we call it grounding, and the British call it earthing. It's the same thing. And then you get to antioxidants. So So what do antioxidants do? Well, oxidants remove negative charge. You can tolerate oxidants because you need that negative charge in order to flourish and to thrive. And so antioxidants are good for you because they prevent the loss of that negative charge. So yeah, I mean, you can consider earthing to be an antioxidant because instead of removing that negative charge, it's actually doing the opposite. It's adding negative charge, which you need. They all really fall into the same category.
So going back to the light thing, if infrared light is all around us, it must be benefiting us all the time. Does that mean I don't have to do anything special to get the benefits of that light?
No, you don't, because you're fine, vigorous, and healthy. I can see you right before me. And so why? Well, it's because you're getting energy from the environment. We tend to discount that, but the environment's always there. And plants, for example, do this all the time. So where do plants get their energy? Well, they absorb light, and the light then supplies the energy for photosynthesis. And photosynthesis, this chemical energy the light is transformed into chemical energy, which is responsible for plant metabolism, growth, bending, basically everything. The first step is the splitting of water. Well, the first step in what I've been telling you in the creation of easy water is exactly that. It's the splitting of water into negative and positive. So what we've discovered is really a generic form of the first step of photosynthesis. It's what plants do, and I argue that we do the same thing, that we exploit energy from the environment. So you don't really need to do anything. You just sit there and as a blob, and you get all this energy that's coming in. And of course you can enhance it by, as we discussed, by going into a sauna, or even ordinary sunlight has plenty of this energy. So where I live in Seattle, it's cloudy in the winter almost every day. And when the sun breaks through, people feel wonderful. And the reason, again, partly maybe you're thinking what a nice change, but also you're getting the energy from this light that you may be missing.
We want to take a moment now and thank our sponsors, the Weston A. Price Foundation. They are currently offering an incentive to join or renew regular membership for as low as 8 cents a day, only $30 a year in the United States. There's also a discount for international members and a low-income option. Among other things, your membership directly supports this podcast series, which is offered for free, as you know. So if you want to continue enjoying this educational programming, please become a member today. Go to westonaprice.org. And listeners like you, Beth on Libsyn said this about episode 47, Fuel for the Athlete, with Ben Greenfield. She said this: I'm a tennis player and also very sensitive to artificial foods. I'm finding tons of great tips in this episode and very grateful for both of you. Beth, we are so happy that you enjoyed the show and you got something out of it. Keep listening and sharing the show whenever you can. Now explain to me more what you were saying about charges and how charges attract and why that's important.
It's a real paradox. Sometimes, I give talks pretty often, and because the fourth phase of water book has become really popular, and I stand up there and, I like the casual talks where we can be almost conversing. And I sometimes, when that situation arises, I ask the audience, okay, if you take one negative charge, one molecule or whatever that's negatively charged from your left pocket, and one that's similarly charged from your right pocket, and you drop them into water, into a glass of water, and they're close enough that they can actually feel one another. So they both have the same charge. What happens to the distance between them? And of course, everybody is sure, although few people will raise their hands because they sense there's some kind of trick there and they don't want to expose their inability at physics, and so they hesitate a bit. But finally they do, and they say, oh yeah, well, they usually gesture with their hands saying, well, they go apart from one another. Of course, everybody knows that. The answer is they come together. This is not something that we in our laboratory discovered, although we've confirmed it for sure. It's been known for 100 years, and some of the greats in physical chemistry are the ones who saw it first. And these people were puzzled, how is it possible that two like charges, same charge, everybody knows that they repel each other, and so the distance should increase, but actually it decreases. So this was taken up by Richard Feynman, who's many people consider him to be the Einstein of the second half of the 20th century, Nobel laureate, the hero of every physicist, and all graduate students in physics, at least in the U.S., read his 3 books, the Lectures in Physics by Feynman. And he talks about this, and he calls it like, likes, like, because the two charges, they're like charges, right, same charge, and they come together. So obviously they must like each other if they come together, because, people who like each other, they don't stay apart, they come together. So it was kind of amusing. And he said that like, likes, like, because of an intermediate of unlike. So what does that mean? It means you've got these two negatively charged blobs sitting not too far from one another, and in between them gather positive charges. And those in-between positive charges attract the two negatives, and so the negatives come together. So it's like, likes, like, because of an intermediate of unlike. We don't anticipate this because everybody knows, every scientist knows reflexively that if you put two like charges next to each other, they repel, but actually they attract. And this has been such an impediment in the progress of physics, because the natural reflective presumption that you put two like charges, obviously they go apart, but they come together.
So tell me, what do charges have to do with our health?
We're all negatively charged. Every chemist will tell you that it's impossible that anything can carry net charge, but we have a lot of evidence through actual measurement. People have measured your electrical potential and your own negative. Same with fruits and vegetables and plants, they're all negatively charged. Charge is really critical. And charge seems to be correlated with health, although we don't have firm evidence on that. If you measure individual cells, and this is in the literature, people know this, a healthy, robust cell will have plenty of negative charge. That is, if you measure the electrical potential, it might be close to 100 millivolts, a tenth of a volt. But it's been found that cancer cells, for example, instead of 100 or 80 millivolts or 100 millivolts, is minus 20 millivolts instead of minus 100 or minus 15. And I've seen papers also about pathological kidney cells, also 10, 15 millivolts negative instead of 80 to 100 millivolts negative.
I see.
Yeah, so this is a real clue, because and we used to do experiments sticking electrodes into cells, and typically they might have been minus 80, minus 90, and we knew that when it was going from minus 80 to minus 70, minus 60, minus 40, the cell was about to die. The more negative charge the cell has, and of course the more negative charge you have, it's the same thing, because your cells, the healthier you are. And if you think about the implications of this, the question is, what gives rise to this negative charge? The physiologist will tell you something about the membrane and pumps and channels and such. And, I published my previous book, Cells, Gels, and the Engines of Life, describes the reasons why that's incorrect. Now we know what's correct. And what's correct is that if the cell is full of negatively charged water, then the cell is negatively charged. You take a container and you throw in some negatively charged stuff, and of course it's going to be negatively charged. Right. It's a no-brainer. And however, if you find that the cell is not sufficiently negatively charged, then you have to say, what's the reason for this? How come? And you think of the logic. Well, if the negative charge comes from the water, and there's not enough negative charge, there must be not enough water. In other words, you're dehydrated. You don't have enough easy water. And that's why connecting yourself to the earth, or going into a sauna, or drinking water that may contain negative charge, all of that is really central to your health.
Does regular water have enough negative charge to help this easy water you're talking about?
It doesn't have a whole lot, but there are so many waters that occur either naturally, right? You can get from springs and such. You can buy them in the supermarket. You can get them from tap water, or you can use reverse osmosis water that has almost nothing. It varies all over the place. So what you really want, at least theoretically, by the way, all of this needs to be tested objectively. We would like to do that, but the granting agencies are not thinking in the same framework. Water is just water. It's not important, and testing the health benefits of certain waters, not so interesting. So we've tried several times, and to do a study properly, we need several $1 million because there's so many experiments that need to be done to test to see which waters, as you're asking, which waters are best for your health. So it's hypothesis at this time, but I think that waters that contain a lot of EZ, fourth phase water, you can't take a glass of EZ water, that doesn't exist, but you can find waters that contain some EZ fraction, and the higher the fraction, we at least hypothesize, the better it is for your health, because you're just replacing the EZ water that's missing from your cells. And because the water is negative, it restores the negativity of your cells. And you could probably get that by earthing or grounding, or, as I said, in the sauna. Also, to digress just one point, some people know about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, where
Michael Jackson did that.
Did he?
Yes.
Didn't know.
I'm pretty sure he was in a machine that looked like it was a chamber of sorts that almost looked like a coffin.
Exactly.
And he was trying to oxygenate himself or something.
It works.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, it works. So a postdoctoral fellow of mine, after he left my laboratory, got a job with one of those companies, and he started educating me on it. And he said that hyperbaric therapy, it was first used by the military. People would have wounds that wouldn't heal no matter what they did. So they put them in this chamber and they healed. and since then they found that hyperbaric oxygen is good for so many afflictions. And so we started scratching our heads again, why is that? Well, hypothesis, maybe the high oxygen and the pressure build EZ water. We studied in the lab, we published a paper, it's absolutely true.
Oh.
So if you build EZ water, at least in theory, it should improve the function of every organ in your body. And that brings me to aspirin. So it's a funny thing. Do you take aspirin sometimes?
No, actually, no.
Never.
You're
so healthy, you don't really need it. But people take, it's actually natural. It comes from the bark of a willow tree, I think. And so the list of benefits of aspirin is long. We know that if you have a headache, takes away your headache. If you have inflammation, that reduces that, reduces pain, allergic reactions. It's good for your heart. There are many studies that show that, and recently shown by a group from Harvard, I think just last year, women with breast cancer, if they take one aspirin per day, their life expectancy is much longer than if they don't take aspirin. So it seems that aspirin has a broad beneficial effect. And so if you think about it, there are two possibilities. One is that aspirin has 10 different mechanisms of action, or it has one that whose action is dispersed throughout all of your body. So we posed a hypothesis that what aspirin does is it builds EZ water. And if it builds EZ water, it's going to build EZ water all over, not just in your left kidney or, whatever. It's everywhere. And we tested it in the laboratory, and we found indeed that aspirin builds EZ water. We didn't test it in cells, we tested in a system that we usually use, but you add a little aspirin and the exclusion zone or fourth phase water grows by a factor of 2 or 3. We also tried for fun Tylenol, which is similar to aspirin, almost the same. And we started testing other agents that are generally good for your health. They all build EZ water. So
interesting. Now, because this is an unusual concept, this fourth phase of water, to those of us who don't run in these circles, what has the reaction been among colleagues and peers who do run in these circles of scientists, physicists, and so on?
Surprisingly positive. My whole life I've been doing science, and I have a tendency to look into areas that maybe disagree with conventional thinking, because my reasoning is that if you're doing research in areas where conventional thinking is okay, why bother? It's already there. Yeah. So you want to look into areas where there may be some difficulties, some problems with conventional thinking, and I know very well what happens when you propose something that runs against the orthodoxy. You take hell for it, and it manifests itself in many different ways. To my surprise, I expected every chemist and physicist to jump up and down but there have been a few negative responses, but far fewer than I expected. And on the other hand, the number of people and groups who have embraced this is staggering. I mean, this has become so popular, I almost can't believe it. I always tell my wife how many emails I'm receiving from people I never heard of. And about a year ago, it was 2 or 3 new people per week, and now it's 2 or 3 new people per day.
Wow.
I can't handle all of the inquiries. That's how. So it's gratifying, and the reviews on Amazon have been amazing. And they're not my friends. Actually, I think there are about in more than 80 reviews now, and the response has been amazing. And there have been published reviews of the books, only 3 or 4 that I've seen, and they're all glowing. So what can I say? I'm really, really pleased with the response. It's unexpectedly popular.
Wow, well, it's a very intriguing concept. I love that you've given us some practical tips on how to increase the negative charge in our bodies to take advantage of this easy water that's coursing through us and keeping us well. So if people have any questions, I imagine they can visit your website or shoot you an email now that you're getting
Sure, shoot me an email. 2 or 3 could go to 3 to 4. No problem at all.
Well, thank you so much, Jerry.
My pleasure. Thank you.
My guest today was Gerald Pollack. Find highlights from our talk along with resources mentioned in the show on the westonprice.org website. Just look for the podcast page and go to the show notes for episode 67. Hey, and a big thank you to Sarah and to Podcast Village for your invaluable support. Oh my gosh, I love you guys so much. Podcast Village trains podcasters and produces and promotes their shows. You all are the best. Thank you.
Have you been enjoying these podcasts? Have you benefited from them or from the resources on the website or local chapter meetings? If so, please become a member of the Weston A. Price Foundation. It's only $25 for students and seniors and $40 for a general membership. Your contribution is critical for the continued work of the foundation. Wise Traditions is brought to you by the Weston A. Price Foundation for Wise Traditions in Food, Farming, and the Healing Arts. The content of this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for medical advice.